The gavel slammed like a gunshot, silencing the courtroom's restless murmurs. 17-year-old Marcus Turner stood alone, wrists cuffed, his heart pounding louder than the judge's strike. He was a kid from Oakland, not a criminal, but the world seemed hell-bent on proving otherwise. In the suffocating air of the Alameda County Courthouse, Marcus felt the weight of every eye on him, some curious, some hostile, all judging. He was accused of robbing a convenience store, a crime he didn't commit, but the evidence was stacked against him. A grainy security video, a witness too eager to point fingers, and a judge whose sneer said guilt before the trial even began. This wasn't justice, it was a trap, and Marcus, barely old enough to vote, was its prey. The judge, Honorable Raymond Caldwell, leaned forward, his glasses glinting under the fluorescent lights. "Mr. Turner," he said, voice dripping with disdain, "your kind doesn't get the benefit of the doubt." The words landed like a punch, and gasps rippled through the courtroom. Marcus's public defender, a young woman named Sarah Klein, shot up, her objection sharp but shaky. "Your Honor, that's prejudicial." Caldwell's eyes narrowed, dismissing her with a wave. "Sit down, Miss Klein. I've seen enough of these cases to know how they end." The crowd stirred, some nodding in agreement, others whispering in outrage. Marcus clenched his fists, the cuffs biting into his skin. He wanted to scream, to tell them he was just a high school senior who loved math and dreamed of college, not some stereotype. But silence was his only shield. The prosecution's case was airtight, or so they thought. The store clerk, a jittery man named Carl Benson, swore he saw Marcus brandishing a knife. The blurry footage showed a black teen in a hoodie, and that was enough for the police to haul Marcus in. Never mind that he was at home studying that night, or that his hoodie was a different brand. The truth didn't seem to matter when the system had already made up its mind. Sarah fought hard, presenting Marcus's alibi, his neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, who saw him at home, but the judge dismissed it as convenient. The courtroom felt like a theater, and Marcus was cast as the villain in a script he didn't write. As the trial dragged on, the tension grew unbearable. Marcus's mother, Angela Turner, sat in the back, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles paled. She was a single mom, a nurse who worked double shifts to keep Marcus in school, and she taught him to hold his head high despite the world's cruelty. But now, watching her son vilified, she felt helpless. Every night, she prayed for a miracle, for someone to see Marcus for who he was, a bright, kind kid with a future. Today, she wore her best dress, a vibrant blue that stood out against the courtroom's drab walls, as if to defy the despair around her. She caught Marcus's eye, and he gave her a small nod, a silent promise to keep fighting. The prosecution's final witness was a cop, Officer Daniel Hargrove, who testified with a smug certainty. "I've dealt with kids like him before," he said, glancing at Marcus. "They're always trouble." Sarah objected again, her voice stronger now, but Caldwell overruled her. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of agreement and dissent. An older black man in the gallery shook his head, muttering, "Same old story." A white woman nearby clutched her purse tighter. The room was a powder keg, and Marcus was the spark. Then came the turning point. Sarah, digging through case files late the previous night, had found a discrepancy. The store's security footage had a timestamp error, placing the robbery an hour earlier than reported. She presented it to the court, her voice steady despite Caldwell's glare. "This proves Marcus couldn't have been there," she said. "He was at a school math club meeting, confirmed by his teacher and 3 classmates." The judge scoffed, but the jury shifted uncomfortably. For the first time, doubt crept into the room. Marcus felt a flicker of hope, but it was fragile, like a candle in a storm. Caldwell, sensing the shift, doubled down. "I've seen enough," he declared, cutting off Sarah's next argument. "This court won't be swayed by excuses." He raised his gavel, ready to deliver a ruling that would seal Marcus's fate. The room held its breath. Angela stood, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "You will not ruin my son's life," she shouted. Every head turned. Caldwell's face reddened, but before he could respond, Marcus spoke, his voice quiet but firm. Your Honor, I'm not what you think I am, and I can prove it. The courtroom froze. Marcus asked for permission to make a call. Sarah hesitated, unsure, but nodded. Caldwell, annoyed but curious, allowed it. Marcus dialed a number, his hands trembling. Mom, he said. Tell them who you are. Angela stepped forward, her presence commanding. I'm Angela Turner, she said. And I'm the U.S. Attorney General. A collective gasp swept the room. The crowd erupted in whispers, phones buzzing as people texted the bombshell. Caldwell's gavel hovered, his confidence shaken. Angela wasn't just a nurse. She'd risen through the ranks of law, a fact Marcus had kept quiet to avoid special treatment. Now it was his lifeline. Angela's voice was steel. My son is innocent, and this trial is a disgrace. I've already contacted the Justice Department to review this case for bias. She turned to the jury, her eyes blazing. You have a chance to do what's right. Don't let prejudice win. The room was electric, the weight of her words sinking in. Sarah seized the moment, demanding a mistrial based on judicial misconduct. The jury, visibly moved, began to whisper among themselves. Even Hargrove looked uneasy, his earlier swagger gone. Caldwell, cornered, banged his gavel for order, but the room was beyond his control. Marcus stood taller, the cuffs no longer defining him. He wasn't just a kid anymore. He was a symbol of every black youth judged before their story was heard. The trial wasn't just about him, no, it was about a system that had failed too many for too long. Angela's revelation had cracked the facade, exposing the rot beneath. But the fight wasn't over. Caldwell could still sway the jury, and the truth hung by a thread. As the jury deliberated, Marcus sat with Sarah, his heart racing. She whispered, You did good, kid. Whatever happens, you showed them who you are. He nodded, but his eyes were on his mom, who stood by the courtroom doors, fielding calls from reporters already sniffing out the story. The handwritten note on the gavel read, Justice or prejudice? Seemed to burn brighter now, a question for everyone in the room. Marcus knew the verdict could go either way, but for the first time he felt seen. Not as a stereotype, but as a person. The jury returned, and the foreman stood, paper in hand. The room was silent, every breath held. Marcus glanced at Angela, who gave him a small, fierce smile. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. But deep down, he hoped, prayed that truth would finally win. The foreman cleared his throat, the rustle of his paper echoing in the silent courtroom. Marcus's pulse thundered in his ears, each second stretching into eternity. Angela stood like a sentinel, her blue dress a beacon of defiance against the gray walls. The jury's faces were unreadable, a mix of exhaustion and resolve, as if they'd wrestled with their consciences for hours. Judge Caldwell sat rigid, his earlier bravado replaced by a thin-lipped scowl. He'd lost control of the narrative, and he knew it. The handwritten note on the gavel read, Justice or prejudice? Seemed to pulse with the room's tension, a silent challenge to everyone present. On the charge of armed robbery, the foreman began, We find the defendant, Marcus Turner, not guilty. A roar erupted, cheers from one side, grumbles from the other. Marcus exhaled, his knees nearly buckling. Sarah gripped his shoulder, her eyes shining with relief. Angela's face broke into a smile, though her jaw stayed tight, as if she knew this victory was only one battle in a larger war. Caldwell banged his gavel, demanding order, but his authority felt hollow now. The cuffs were unlocked, and Marcus rubbed his wrists, free but forever changed. The aftermath was chaos. Reporters swarmed outside, cameras flashing as Angela escorted Marcus through the courthouse doors. No comment, she said, her voice calm but firm, shielding her son from the frenzy. Social media exploded with hashtags. Justice for Marcus, End Bias Now. Posts on X captured the divide. Some celebrated the verdict as a triumph over systemic racism. Others decried it as special treatment for the Attorney General's son. Marcus saw the headlines on a reporter's phone and felt a pang. Even in victory, he was reduced to a symbol, not a person. Back home in Oakland, Marcus sat on his bed, staring at the math textbook he hadn't touched since the arrest. The room felt smaller now, the walls closing in with memories of that night, the police lights, the cold cuffs, the clerk's accusing finger. Angela knocked softly and sat beside him. "You okay, baby?" she asked, her voice softer than in the courtroom. He nodded, but his eyes betrayed him. "I thought I was done for, Mom. They didn't even listen." She pulled him close, her strength a quiet anchor. "They listened in the end, and we'll make sure they keep listening." Angela's influence as U.S. Attorney General didn't end with the verdict. She launched an investigation into Caldwell's conduct, uncovering a pattern of biased rulings against minority defendants. The Justice Department's report, released weeks later, was damning. Caldwell had disproportionately sentenced Black and Latino youths to harsher penalties. Petitions for his removal gained traction, with thousands signing online. Ex-posts amplified the call, with users sharing stories of similar injustices. "This isn't just about Marcus," one viral post read. "It's about every kid judged by their skin." Caldwell resigned quietly, but the system he represented remained, stubborn and entrenched. Marcus, meanwhile, struggled to return to normal. At school, some classmates treated him like a hero, others whispered behind his back. His math teacher, Mr. Patel, pulled him aside. "You're still you, Marcus. Don't let this define you." But it did. Every glance in the hallways, every news article, reminded him of the trial. He started a blog, pouring his thoughts into words about the fear, the anger, the hope. It gained a small following, mostly kids like him who'd faced their own battles with prejudice. One comment stuck with him: "Your story gives me courage to keep going." For the first time, Marcus felt his voice mattered. Sarah, his lawyer, became a friend. Over coffee, she shared her own doubts during the trial. "I was scared we'd lose," she admitted. Caldwell had the room in his grip. Marcus nodded, remembering the judge's sneer. "But you fought anyway," he said. Sarah smiled. "So did you." She was now taking on more pro bono cases, inspired by Marcus's case to challenge the system head-on. Her latest client was a Latino teen facing similar charges, and Marcus offered to help with research. Felt good to fight for someone else. The community, too, was changing. The trial had sparked heated debates in Oakland. Town halls overflowed with residents Black, white, Latino, Asian arguing over police reform and judicial bias. Some defended the system, insisting it was fair. Others, like Mrs. Jenkins, Marcus's neighbor, shared stories of their own encounters with injustice. "I've lived here 40 years, she said at one meeting, "and I've seen too many kids like Marcus targeted." The room nodded, some tearfully. A local activist group launched a campaign for body cameras and bias training for police, gaining support from unexpected corners. Even Officer Hargrove, the smug cop from the trial, faced scrutiny after his testimony was questioned in another case. Marcus's blog grew, and with it, his resolve. He wrote about the clerk, Carl Benson, who'd wrongly identified him. After the trial, Benson had sent a letter, typed and formal, apologizing for his mistake. "I was scared that night," he wrote. "I saw what I expected to see." Marcus didn't forgive him right away. Anger lingered, but he wrote back, suggesting they meet. When they did, at a quiet diner, Benson was nervous, his hands fidgeting. "I didn't know," he said. "I just assumed." Marcus nodded, seeing a man trapped by his own fears, not a monster. "We all gotta do better," Marcus said, and Benson agreed. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a start. Angela, meanwhile, faced her own battles. Her role in the trial drew praise but also backlash. Some accused her of abusing power, though the Justice Department's findings vindicated her. On X, opinions were split. "She's a hero for standing up," one user wrote. Another countered, "She pulled strings for her kid. That's not justice." Angela ignored the noise, focusing on policy. She pushed for federal guidelines on judicial accountability, citing Marcus's case as evidence of systemic flaws. At a press conference, she said, "My son's freedom isn't enough. Every child deserves a fair shot." The crowd applauded, but Marcus, watching on TV, saw the exhaustion in her eyes. She was fighting for him, for everyone, at a cost. As months passed, Marcus found purpose. He spoke at a youth rally, his voice steady despite the crowd. "I was almost another statistic," he said. "But I'm here because people believed in me, believe in each other." The applause was deafening, and for a moment he felt invincible. He applied to college, aiming for a degree in public policy. He wanted to change the system, not just survive it. Angela helped with his applications, her pride evident. "You're gonna do big things," she said, and he believed her. The trial's ripple effects lingered. Oakland's community forums led to small reforms: a new oversight board, mandatory training for judges. It wasn't enough, but it was progress. Marcus's blog became a platform for others to share their stories, building a network of voices that refused to be silenced. He met kids from across the country, each with their own tales of survival. Together, they organized a march, holding signs that echoed the courtroom's note, "Justice or prejudice?" The question wasn't just for judges, but for everyone. In the end, Marcus stood on his porch, watching the sunset over Oakland's skyline. The city was flawed, beautiful, alive. He thought of Caldwell, now a footnote, and of the jury who'd chosen truth over bias. He thought of his mom, who'd risked everything, and of himself, a kid who'd faced a system designed to break him and walked away whole. The fight wasn't over. Prejudice didn't vanish with one verdict, but hope felt stronger than fear. What do you think? Can justice ever truly win? Or are we all caught in the same old divides? Share your voice because it matters.